Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something today that most people have never seen with their spiritual eyes. Psalm 23 is not just for funerals. It's for finances. It's not a scripture of sorrow. It's a millionaire's mindset in disguise. The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. That's not lack. That's overflow. That's not survival. That's supernatural supply. When you walk with God as your shepherd, you stop chasing money and start attracting provision. You shift from need-minded to seed-minded. See, people who stay broke often have one thing in common. They think like sheep without a shepherd. No guidance, no direction, no vision. But when the Lord is your shepherd, you don't just wander. You walk in divine alignment. And where there is alignment, there is abundance. Let me break this thing down for you verse by verse so you can see the mindset hidden in the scripture. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. That's rest in the midst of riches. That's peace and prosperity. God is saying, I will give you access to resources where you can lie down and still grow. A millionaire doesn't panic. They plan, they don't hustle, they harvest. He lift me beside the still waters. Still waters represent clarity. Every wealthy person has mastered calmness in chaos. The poor react, the wealthy respond. And when your mind is still, your decisions get sharper. That's millionaire thinking. Discipline directed and divine. He restoreth my soul. Let me ask you this. How can you build wealth if your soul is bankrupt? True riches start from within. Restoration is not just about healing. It's about repositioning. You've been stuck because your soul was tired. But God is ready to restore your identity, your dignity, and your destiny. He lift me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Millionaire minds are not just focused on money. They're focused on mission. You're not just making wealth. You're making legacy. You're not chasing riches. You're walking in righteousness. And when you follow the right path, provision follows you. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. Hear me. Valleys are temporary, but vision is eternal. Every wealthy person has walked through a shadow season. The valley is not your verdict, it's your vehicle. You're passing through, not pitching a tent. Don't build a mindset around your moment. Build it around your mission. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. A table, that means elevation. That means strategy. That means access. God doesn't just bless you in private. He makes your breakthrough visible. The millionaire mindset expects the table. Even when enemies surround them while haters hate, God elevates. My cup runneth over. Now we're talking overflow. Not just enough for you, but enough to bless others. Millionaires don't operate in barely get by. They operate in more than enough. And God didn't say the bank account runs over. He said the cup, that's internal. Because when your spirit overflows, your wallet follows. Sure, goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life. That's automatic favor. That's divine security. That's heaven's insurance policy. The millionaire mindset doesn't chase blessing. It walks in obedience and lets blessing chase them. God's economy is not recession proof. It's resurrection proof, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. That's the ultimate investment. The house of the Lord is where vision gets birthed, strategies get downloaded, and destinies are unlocked. So hear me loud and clear. Psalm 23 is not about pity. It's about prosperity. It's not about fear. It's about faith. It's not about death. It's about dominion. When you adopt this mindset, you don't just recite the psalm. You become the psalm. You don't just read the word. You live the word. You become the psalm. You become, because millionaires aren't made in the bank. They're made in the Bible. The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. This one verse is a divine declaration of abundance. It's not just poetic language. It's a mindset, a millionaire's mindset. When the psalmist said, I shall not want, he wasn't hoping. He wasn't wishing. He was declaring. That declaration reveals the starting point of wealth, not in the wallet, but in the word. See, most people live their lives driven by lack. Their entire mindset is built on not enough. Not enough time, not enough money, not enough education, not enough opportunity. That is a scarcity mentality, and it keeps people broke spiritually and financially. But this verse is the exact opposite. This is not a mindset that asks for permission. This is a mindset that walks in position. I shall not want is the language of someone who knows their source. The world teaches hustle, grind, and go get it. But the Bible starts with alignment. The Lord is my shepherd. Before there is abundance, there is authority. And when you submit to divine authority, you gain supernatural access to ideas, access to strategies, access to favor. When the Lord is your shepherd, lack is no longer your landlord. Lack gets evicted from your thoughts. Poverty gets kicked out of your vocabulary, and small thinking is no longer welcome in your heart. Now, here's what most people miss. I shall not want isn't just about getting what you want. It's about no longer needing what you thought you needed. When God is your source, you stop looking to jobs, people, or systems for your provision. You stop chasing provision and start creating value. Because wealth isn't something you work for. It's something you walk in. It starts in the soul. Scripture says, Beloved, I wish above all things that thou mayest prosper and be in health, even as thy soul prospereth. That means external wealth follows internal worth, and internal worth is rooted in your relationship with your shepherd. When people think like employees, they think, I hope I get paid. But when people think like kingdom entrepreneurs, they think, I shall not want. They know that if God is with them, nothing can stand against them. That mindset causes them to walk differently, talk differently, and show up differently. Scarcity makes people settle. Scarcity makes people play small, but abundance makes people take territory. You can't walk into millionaire life with a beggar's belief. You can't own land with a renter's mindset. You can't build legacy with a just enough to get by attitude. So let me ask you, what thoughts are you tolerating that God never authorized? Who told you that you can't be rich and righteous? Who told you that wealth is wicked? Who told you that playing small honors God? That's Psalm 23. That's tradition talking. That's fear masquerading as humility. Psalm 23 doesn't say, I might not want. It says, I shall not want. That is certain. That is faith. That is well thinking. And it's not based on your circumstances. It's based on your shepherd. See, millionaires are not afraid to say, I shall not want, because they don't see money as their master. They see money as their servant. They understand that money is not the root of evil. The love of it is. So when you serve God and let money serve you, your mindset shifts from desperation to dominion, from hoping to harvest, from waiting to winning. Most people are trying to solve their money problem with money, but you don't fix mindset problems with material solutions. You fix mindset problems with truth. And the truth is, if the Lord is truly your shepherd, then your days of lack are numbered. Scarcity must bow to sufficiency, not because you're lucky, but because you're led, not because you're chasing, but because you're aligned. And let me be clear, this mindset doesn't make you lazy, it makes you laser focused. When you believe I shall not want, you stop wasting time on worry. You stop doubting your next move. You stop waiting for people to approve what God has already anointed. You start moving with purpose. You start thinking like a producer, not a consumer. You start creating solutions instead of complaining about problems. People with this mindset don't need more money. They need more revelation. Revelation that your provision is already promised. Revelation that your value is not in your bank account, but in your beliefs. Revelation that your shepherd is the CEO of the universe and he's not running out of supply. And that's why I shall not want is not just a verse. It's a vault full of wisdom, wealth, and divine strategy. But only those who think like hares can access it. God doesn't respond to need, he responds to faith. And faith sounds like this. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. That's not just about rest. That's about readiness. That's not weakness. It's wealth. When most people read this verse, they imagine a soft place to lay their head. But when you've got the mindset of increase, when you've got the eyes of abundance, you realize this isn't about laying down physically. It's about being positioned spiritually. Green pastures are a symbol of prosperity, provision, and peace. And the fact that he maketh me to lie down tells me something powerful. Sometimes God has to force you into rest because you're too busy chasing something he already gave you access to. You've been running, grinding, pushing, striving, and all along the provision was waiting in a pasture, not a paycheck. The pasture represents a place of trust, a place where you're not hustling for survival, but resting in supply. And the millionaire mindset understands this. Rest is not inactivity, it's intentionality. It's choosing to trust God's system over the world's system. It's understanding that I don't have to chase every opportunity. Some blessings are attracted, not pursued. When a sheep lies down in green pastures, it's because it feels safe. It's not afraid of lack. It's not worried about wolves. That's what peace looks like when you're under the covering of your shepherd. But too many people operate with anxiety instead of authority. They're constantly looking for the next deal, the next client, the next dollar because their mind is programmed for lack. They're standing in green pastures with a survival mindset, but the pasture doesn't change your life. The posture does. You can't receive what you won't rest in. When you walk with a millionaire's mindset, you learn to recognize the green pastures God has already placed in your life. For some, it's an idea. For others, it's a divine relationship. For some, it's a gift that's been buried under years of doubt and fear. The pasture doesn't always look flashy. It doesn't always look public, but it's green. And green means it's ready. Green means it's alive. Green means God has already made a way, but you've got to stop long enough to see it. There's a difference between motion and progress, and one of the biggest lies the culture will tell you is that if you're not moving, you're not growing. But God says, lie down, rest in me, trust me. Understand that your breakthrough isn't just in what you do, it's in what you believe. You can hustle your whole life and still miss the harvest if your heart is in survival mode. But if you learn to lie down in green pastures, to abide in the mindset of abundance, you will start to operate with calm confidence, not chaos, not confusion. But when God tells you to lie down, it's because he's about to reveal the next level. The millionaire mindset knows how to rest on purpose, not because everything is perfect, but because everything is promised. That's why it says, "He maketh me." Because if it were up to us, we'd keep running in circles. We keep chasing things that don't align with our assignment. We keep working ourselves into exhaustion, thinking that our effort is the key to our elevation. But God says, no, I'll make you lie down. I'll slow you down so I can set you up, and the location matters. He doesn't make you lie down in barren land. He doesn't make you lie down in dirt. He makes you lie down in green pastures. That means the ground is already fertile. That means the resource is already there. That means the opportunity is already prepared. You don't have to beg for the blessing. It's under your feet. You just have to change your posture. And the posture of a kingdom-minded millionaire is one of peace, not panic. Purpose, not pressure. This is where the poor and the prosperous part ways. Poor people think they can't rest until they've arrived. But prosperous people rest because they know who's driving. When the shepherd leads, the sheep can rest. When you truly believe God is your provider, you stop fighting every battle, chasing every check, and fearing every closed door. You realize if he led me here, there's something green here. If he planted me here, there's something prosperous here. If he made me lie down here, then something is about to grow. Some of you are standing in your green pasture, but you're treating it like desert. You're waiting for more before you move. But God is saying, rest in what I've already given you. Build with what you already have. Lie down in the land I've already blessed. And this is not passive faith. This is aggressive trust. This is what real boldness looks like. To rest in the middle of responsibility, to pause in the middle of pressure. To trust God enough to sit when everything in your flesh wants to sprint. You don't grow wealth by overworking. You grow it by obeying. You don't expand your impact by chasing. It expands when you position yourself in the promise. The pasture is your place of preparation, your place of peace, and your place of perspective. Because it's hard to see the big picture when you're always in motion. But when he makes you lie down, he's not just giving you rest. He's giving you revelation. And when revelation shows up, transformation begins. He led me beside the still waters. This isn't just about a peaceful walk through nature. This is about divine strategy, about clarity, about the millionaire's mindset that refuses to make decisions in chaos. Still waters are a symbol of stability, reflection, and alignment. They represent that place where the noise of life is silenced and you can finally hear the whisper of God's direction. A wealthy life isn't built in confusion. It's built in clarity. The shepherd doesn't drive you into drama. He leads you beside still waters because he knows your next level can only be accessed when your mind is calm and your spirit is steady. People who are always busy, always panicking, always reacting, they can't receive vision. They can't receive insight. They're too distracted by the waves to notice the opportunity. But those who walk beside still waters understand the secret of success. Clarity always precedes cash flow. Before the breakthrough in your bank account, there must be a breakthrough in your belief system. Before the revenue shows up, the revelation must show up, and revelation requires stillness. Still waters don't just appear. You have to be led there. The fact that God leads you to them means you won't find them by accident. That's why so many people miss out on divine ideas. They're looking for them in the noise of Instagram, the noise of opinions, the noise of competition. But clarity isn't found in comparison. It's found in communion. When God leads you beside still waters, he's inviting you to step away from the noise of the crowd and tune into the frequency of heaven. Because divine strategy doesn't come from scrolling, it comes from stillness. A millionaire doesn't just operate from ambition, they operate from accuracy. They don't waste energy on things that look good but aren't God. That kind of precision only comes when your waters are still, when your spirit is settled, when your thoughts are no longer racing from fear to fear. That's why many are busy but not productive, active but not advancing. Loud but not listening because they skipped the stillness, they ignored the water. And without the water, you end up in the wilderness. Still waters also reflect. When the water is still, you can see your reflection. That's identity, that's awareness, that's vision. If you don't know who you are, you'll never recognize what you carry. And if you don't recognize what you carry, you'll sell yourself short for the rest of your life. But when God brings you beside still waters, he's not just helping you rest. He's helping you remember your calling. Remember your covenant. Remember that you were created for dominion, not desperation. Too many people try to build wealth without identity. They chase the image but not the instruction. They want the platform but not the process. But when you see clearly, you build wisely, you invest boldly, you lead authentically. The millionaire mindset doesn't start with income. It starts with introspection. You've got to get still long enough to see what's been deposited inside of you. Still waters also quench thirst. And in business, your thirst is not just financial, it's visionary. You're thirsty for strategy, thirsty for innovation, thirsty for alignment. And that thirst can't be satisfied by hype or hustle. It's only satisfied at the waters of wisdom. This is where your next offer is birthed. This is where your next move is confirmed. This is where you stop second guessing and start executing. And execution without confusion is the birthplace of supernatural momentum. Some of you have been operating in muddy waters, waters full of worry, full of doubt, full of double-mindedness. But God doesn't lead you into murkness. He leads you beside stillness. He leads you out of panic and into purpose, out of fear and into focus. And once you taste from those still waters, your appetite for chaos dries up. You no longer tolerate environments that drain you. You no longer stay in circles that confuse you, because once your spirit gets a taste of peace, it stops settling for pressure. A still mind is a sharp mind, and sharp minds attract sharp money. Wealth flows to clarity. Vision attracts provision, and clarity is the fruit of divine order. When your spirit is still, you stop forcing outcomes and start flowing in obedience. You stop striving for results and start aligning with instructions. And instructions from God don't need validation, they require execution. But you can't execute what you don't hear, and you can't hear what you won't get quite enough to receive. The path to 7 figures isn't paved with more effort, it's paved with more obedience. And obedience starts with clarity. God doesn't speak confusion, He speaks precision. And when He leads you beside still waters, it's not just for your refreshment, it's for your refinement. It's where the old mindsets are washed off and the new mindset is baptized. It's where the poverty thinking dies and the kingdom mentality is born. It's where the noise of the world gets silenced and the voice of God becomes loud. Still waters are sacred. They're not public spaces. Not everybody gets access. That's why you've got to protect your mind like it's your mansion. Protect your peace like it's your profit. Stillness is not a waste of time. It's an investment into your next level. Because when you drink from still waters, you stop leaking energy on distractions. You stop wasting days on dead ends. You start building with divine blueprints, not worldly templates. God leads you to still waters because He knows that's where you're the most powerful. That's where you're the most clear. That's where you're the most dangerous to the enemy, because a still spirit is a storm to the systems of limitation. It's not passive, it's potent, not empty. It's energized, not confused. It's commanding, He restoreth my soul. Now, that right there is one of the most underestimated wealth principles in all of Scripture. Restoration is not just a feel-good spiritual concept. It's a strategy for dominion. It's the divine reset that prepares you to step into the fullness of your assignment. When your soul is tired, your vision is blurry. When your soul is weary, your decisions become reactive instead of intentional. You can't build $1 million destiny with a broken inner world. That's why the shepherd doesn't just lead you, he restores you. Because wealth without restoration leads to burnout. Success without healing leads to sabotage. And momentum without wholeness leads to a crash. The word restore implies something was lost, broken, or depleted. And when you operate in the system of the world, depletion is normal. Burnout is expected. Exhaustion is worn like a badge of honor. But the kingdom operates differently. In the kingdom, you don't just grind, you grow. You don't just survive, you're sustained. And that kind of sustainability comes from soul restoration. Your soul is your mind, your will, and your emotions. That means God is not just healing your spirit. He's renewing your thinking, resetting your desires, and stabilizing your emotional world. Because your soul is the command center for your decisions, and every wealth building and move you make flows out of that internal condition. If your soul is confused, your business will be chaotic. If your soul is anxious, your leadership will be inconsistent. If your soul is bitter, your relationships will bleed. And what most people try to do is fix external problems with external tools, when what they really need is soul restoration. They don't need another tactic, they need transformation. They don't need a new offer. They need a new outlook. Because no matter how high you climb, if your soul is fractured, your future is fragile. And that's why the shepherd makes restoration a priority. Restoration is not a one-time event, it's a continual process. It's not just something that happens at the altar, it happens in alignment. Every time you submit your plans back to God, your soul is being restored. Every time you forgive someone who wronged you, your soul is being restored. Every time you choose peace over panic, faith over fear, obedience over option, your soul is being restored. And that restoration gives you the energy, clarity, and confidence to operate at the level God is calling you to. Because $1 million callings require $1 million capacity, and that capacity starts in your soul. Think about it, you can have the best strategy in the world, but if your mindset is rooted in trauma, you'll self-sabotage every opportunity, you'll underprick your value, you'll shrink in the face of visibility, you'll avoid necessary conversations. Why? Because your soul hasn't been restored, and a damaged soul makes dangerous decisions. But when God restores your soul, He's not just patching you up, He's upgrading you. He's pulling out the lies and planting the truth. He's removing the guilt and installing grace. He's erasing the fear and writing a new script based on faith. Restoration brings your past into perspective. You stop looking at your failures as disqualifications and start seeing them as preparation. You stop hiding your story and start harnessing it. You realize that the moments that tried to break you were actually building your brand. And that awareness gives you a supernatural confidence. Because when your soul is whole, you stop living to prove something and start living to produce something. You stop operating from deficiency and start operating from dominion. That's millionaire thinking, not hustling from a place of hurt, but creating from a place of healing. And here's the truth. Most people don't need more money. They need more restoration. Because if God gave you what you were praying for before restoring your soul, it would crush you. The weight of the blessing would feel like a burden because your foundation wasn't strong enough to carry it. That's why he restores before he releases. He's getting your soul strong enough to steward the success. He's building internal structure so your external results don't collapse under pressure. And once your soul is whole, the overflow becomes sustainable. Restoration also gives you back your rhythm. When your soul is out of sync, your life is out of order. You can't hear clearly. You can't discern accurately. You misread people, misjudge timing, miscalculate risk. But restoration resets your rhythm. It tunes you back to the frequency of heaven. It helps you move with grace, not grind, with flow, not force, with wisdom, not weariness. And people who are in rhythm get more done with less effort because they're not swimming against the current. They're walking with the shepherd. When your soul is restored, you become dangerous in the best way. You're no longer driven by insecurity, but by identity. You stop mimicking other people's models and start moving in your own mantle. You stop looking for validation because you already carry the revelation. Your confidence doesn't come from applause. It comes from alignment, and alignment is the byproduct of restoration. It's not just about feeling better, it's about functioning better. Better as a leader, better as a parent, better as a builder, better as a believer. Restoration brings back what the enemy tried to steal. It recovers your confidence, it revives your creativity, it reawakens your calling. And that's why it's a vital part of the millionaire mindset, because you're not just trying to get rich, you're trying to build legacy. You're trying to shift generations. You're trying to represent the kingdom well. And you can't do that from a place of emotional bankruptcy. You need a restored soul, a renewed mind, and a refreshed spirit to carry the weight of divine assignment. He led me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. This is not just about morality. It's about momentum. It's about alignment with divine direction that opens doors no hustle ever could. When you walk the paths of righteousness, you're not just doing what's right, you're moving in the rhythm of heaven's economy. You're being guided by strategy, not by struggle. There are a lot of paths in life, and not all of them lead to purpose. Some lead to profit without peace. Others lead to popularity without power. But the path of righteousness is the only one that leads to prosperity with purpose. It's the road where divine favor flows. It's where your character catches up to your calling. It's where your steps are not only ordered but profitable. People think the righteous path is restrictive, that it's boring, that it's slow. But let me tell you what's really slow. Chasing success with no strategy. Trying to build wealth while ignoring wisdom. The righteous path is not the longer path, it's the smarter one. It's not the quieter road. It's the one with less traffic because few are willing to walk it. Most people want elevation without instruction. They want promotion without process. But the righteous path is where God develops the internal strength necessary to handle external blessings. When He leads you, it means you're not wandering. You're not confused. You're not desperate. You're not experimenting with your future. You are following a proven blueprint that's been laid out since before you were born. Paths of righteousness aren't just about being morally good. They're about being mission-minded. The righteous path is your assignment path. It's the road where provision meets purpose. It's where clarity meets calling. It's where increase meets identity. You're not just being good. You're being guided. And that divine guidance is what separates the wealthy from the merely busy. You can be on a profitable path and still be outside of your purpose. But when you're on the righteous path, profit follows purpose. Money flows to clarity. Resources chase responsibility. When you walk the path of righteousness, you become a magnet for the miraculous. Opportunities open that others can't explain. Doors swing wide without you having to force them. That's not luck. That's alignment. That's what happens when God leads and you follow. For His name's sake means that the success of your path is tied to His reputation. That changes everything. That means when you walk in obedience, you're not just representing yourself, you're representing heaven. When God leads you down a path, He's already factored in the obstacles, the opposition, and the outcome. His name is on the line, so failure is not an option. The world will try to get you to take shortcuts to compromise your integrity for quicker results. But shortcuts cost more than they save. What you compromise to get, you'll eventually lose. But what you gain through righteousness, you'll have the grace to keep. The righteous path also protects your peace. Because when you know you're in alignment, you don't have to second guess your decisions. You're not questioning if this move is right or if that door is real. You walk with conviction, you build with confidence, you invest with discernment. You know who you are, where you're going, and who is backing you. That kind of clarity is priceless. Most people are successful but stressed, rich but restless, elevated but empty because they got what they wanted but they left the path. They pursued the platform but abandoned the process. God doesn't just care about what you build. He cares about how you build it. He doesn't want you to just make money. He wants you to move in integrity. That's the righteous path. It's a path that keeps your hands clean and your vision clear. It's the path that builds not just wealth but legacy. It doesn't just make you rich, it makes you righteous. And righteousness is attractive to heaven. It attracts favor, it attracts open doors. It attracts the kind of opportunities that aren't even on your radar yet. The righteous path isn't always easy. Sometimes it feels slow. Sometimes it feels quiet. Sometimes it feels lonely. But it's never without reward, because every step on that path is ordered. Every delay is strategic. Every obstacle is an opportunity for your faith to mature. And that maturity prepares you for the weight of the blessing that's coming. If you skip the righteous path, you skip the development. And if you skip the development, you short-circuit your destiny. But when you stay on the path, your elevation becomes inevitable. You start seeing money differently. It's no longer your master, it's your messenger. It tells the story of your obedience. It reflects the excellence of your stewardship. It becomes a tool for transformation, not just a trophy for validation. The righteous path turns money from a struggle into a seed. You begin to multiply, not just maintain. You start to create, not just consume. You start to lead, not just labor. Because on the righteous path, your output increases as your obedience deepens. This path also gives you authority, not just influence in the marketplace, but spiritual authority that governs atmospheres. People start to notice that you're not just skilled, you're sanctioned. You're not just trained, you're trusted. You're not just profitable, you're prophetic. You make moves that don't make sense to man, but are undeniable in impact. You launch what others are afraid to even imagine. You say yes to assignments others decline because you know you're not just moving for you, you're moving for his name's sake. And when his name is attached to your path, you walk in divine insurance. Heaven has a vested interest in your success because your life becomes a living billboard of God's integrity. Your business becomes a platform for his brilliance. Your influence becomes a tool for his glory. You start realizing that every deal, every connection, every breakthrough is not just about your comfort. It's about his covenant. And covenant brings covering. Covering brings confidence. Confidence brings courage. And courage unlocks the future he designed for you before the foundation of the world. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. This is not a scripture about dying. It's a revelation about dominating. It's not about the end. It's about endurance. The valley is not your destination. It's a passageway. And the millionaire mindset understands this. Just because it's dark doesn't mean it's deadly. Just because it's a valley doesn't mean it's a verdict. Wealth is not built on mountain tops alone. It's forged in valleys under pressure, in the places where fear wants to whisper and faith must shout louder. The valley is where the warrior is formed. The valley is where clarity is tested. The valley is where confidence is built. Most people think a valley season is a setback, but those with kingdom vision recognize it as a setup, because if the shepherd is leading, the valley has to be part of the plan. There is no abundance without adversity. There is no elevation without opposition. The valley exists to expose your foundation, not to destroy you, but to develop you. And what you do in the valley determines how high you can go on the other side. The valley is where you stop depending on feelings and start depending on faith. It's where your business goes from being driven by emotion to being powered by conviction. It's where your excuses die and your execution is born. The valley of the shadow of death is a mental place before it's ever a physical one. It's the place where the enemy tries to convince you that it's over, that you're stuck, that the market is too hard, that the breakthrough is too far, that your calling is too late, that the vision is too crazy. But the text says shadow, not substance. And a shadow only exists because there's light somewhere. If there's a shadow, it means the light of God's presence is still near. It means the darkness is not final. It's temporary. The millionaire mindset knows how to walk when it's dark. It knows how to move forward without all the answers. It knows how to keep sowing even when it looks like nothing is growing. The difference between fear and faith is direction. Faith moves you, and in the valley, you don't stop, you walk. The verse says, yea, though I walk through, not sit in, not camp in, not build in, you're passing through. The valley is part of the journey, but not the whole story. You walk through bankruptcy. You walk through rejection. You walk through confusion. You walk through betrayal. You walk through stagnation. But you do not stop there, because what God has for you is on the other side, and the only way to reach it is to keep walking. Fear is a liar, and if you allow fear to narrate your valley, it will make you build in a place you were meant to pass through. That's why you've got to shift the soundtrack of your mind. Stop playing loops of limitation. Stop listening to voices that don't carry vision. Just because the valley feels like failure doesn't mean it is. Every valley you survive becomes a testimony that funds your authority. Every dark place you conquer becomes a deposit of boldness in your leadership. The millionaire mindset doesn't just build on success stories. It builds on scars. It takes the pain of the valley and turns it into strategy. It transforms hardship into help. It monetizes the message that was born in the mess. You're not walking alone in that valley. The shepherd doesn't abandon you when it gets dark. He walks with you, and his presence is not just for comfort, it's for confidence. When you know who walks with you, you stop negotiating with fear. You stop shrinking when adversity shows up. You stop doubting your ability to execute, because presence produces power. It's not the absence of struggle that defines the millionaire mindset. It's the presence of purpose, purpose that overrides panic, purpose that outlasts pain, purpose that keeps moving when logic says stop. In that valley, your capacity gets stretched, your resilience gets tested, your creativity gets unlocked. You start seeing solutions in places that used to look like problems. You stop waiting for motivation and start walking in discipline. You stop crying over the delay and start learning from the detour. Valleys are not there to stop you. They're there to strip you of every mindset that can't go with you to the next level. That's why some things had to die in the valley. That's why certain people left. That's why some doors closed. Because the valley is sacred soil. It produces the kind of character that money can't buy. People who've never walked through valleys will never understand the weight you carry. They'll see the fruit but never understand the fight. They'll envy the platform but never recognize the price. But those who've walked through their own valley know that you don't come out the same. You come out with vision. You come out with grit. You come out with a knowing that can't be shaken by numbers, critics, or failure. You walk out of the valley with the kind of faith that can fund a future, lead a generation, and build something that hell itself can't cancel. The valley also teaches you to listen differently. When it's dark, your ears become more important than your eyes. You can't always see the next step, but you can hear the voice of the one who leads. And that voice will never steer you wrong. In the valley, your discernment sharpens, your dependency deepens, your trust matures. You learn to build without applause, to move without approval, to grow without guarantees. And that kind of maturity becomes the bedrock of your wealth. Because money without maturity leads to manipulation, but maturity multiplies money. The shadow of death may loom, but it cannot touch you. Not when you're covered, not when you're led, not when your mission is bigger than the moment. That's why you don't fear, you don't flinch, you don't fold, you walk through, and you come out with a testimony so rich, so potent, so undeniable that even your valley becomes a part of your value. Thou preparest the table before me in the presence of mine enemies. This is not just a poetic verse. It's a prophetic declaration. It's the posture of someone who knows they are chosen, called, and covered. When God prepares a table, he's not just offering you a meal. He's positioning you for manifestation. The table is a symbol of access, strategy, elevation, and honor. It's where plans are laid, decisions are made, and destinies are activated. But this table is not set in the safety of solitude. It's set in the presence of your enemies. That's intentional. That's divine strategy. Because the table is not just about your comfort. It's about your calling being confirmed in full view of those who doubted you. The millionaire mindset recognizes that not everyone clapping is a fan and not every critic is a threat. Enemies are often indicators that elevation is near. That's the question.